a knife pressed cold against my throat. The man holding it laughed until Park Jin-woo moved. He crossed the terrace with speed that made the world tilt, ripped the blade away, and turned the man's laugh into silence that smelled like fear. They'd married me to him as punishment, a disposable woman meant to humiliate Korea's most dangerous prosecutor. They didn't know I was the spark that would burn their world down. 3 days before the wedding, my stepmother Clarissa slid the marriage contract across polished mahogany with a smile that meant I had no future unless I signed. My father's debts were considerable, she'd said, her manicured nails tapping wood like a countdown. The Hart family name means nothing if we can't pay our creditors. But Prosecutor Park needs a wife to satisfy his family's traditional expectations. You need a roof over your head. Perfect, really. The unsaid words hung heavy. You're the disposable daughter, the one nobody wanted, the curvy girl who didn't fit their society's narrow standards. Trading me to Seoul's most feared prosecutor killed 2 birds with 1 stone. I signed because starving wasn't an option. I just hadn't expected the stranger to look like retribution carved into human form. Park Jin-woo stood at the altar in perfectly tailored black, his presence commanding the entire cathedral despite his complete stillness. Tall, shoulders broad enough to carry the weight of justice itself, with a face so coldly beautiful it could have been sculpted from ice. His dark eyes revealed nothing as I walked down the aisle in a dress Clarissa had chosen, something deliberately unflattering that made whispers ripple through the crowd. The ceremony was clinical. Jin-woo's voice was flat when he spoke his vows, his hand cold when he slid the ring onto my finger. He didn't kiss me when the officiant declared us married, just inclined his head slightly before turning away. At the reception, Jin-woo's family made their disdain crystal clear. His mother, an elegant woman with frost in her smile, introduced me to guests as the new daughter-in-law, with particular emphasis on new, as if emphasizing how temporary and replaceable I was. Jin-woo's younger sister, Yoo-jin, openly laughed when I struggled with my chopsticks. Jin-woo said nothing. He sat at the head table like a statue, his expression revealing nothing as his family systematically humiliated his new wife. I kept my chin high, refusing to let them see me break. When the reception finally ended, Jin-woo led me to his car without a word. The drive to his penthouse was silent, Seoul's light streaming past tinted windows like liquid gold. The penthouse was stunning in its cold perfection. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, the furniture all clean lines and expensive taste. Jin-woo showed me to a bedroom down the hall from his own. Your room, he said, his Korean-accented English precise and emotionless. This marriage is legal obligation, Miss Hart, nothing more. The door closed behind him with a soft click that felt like a coffin sealing shut. The next morning, I woke to an empty apartment. Jin-woo had left before dawn without a word. Over the following days, a pattern emerged. He left before I woke and returned long after I'd gone to bed. On the rare occasions our paths crossed, he was coldly polite, treating me like particularly delicate furniture that might break if handled roughly. His family visited weekly, ostensibly to welcome the new bride, but really to remind me of my place. Jin-woo's mother brought expensive hanbok dresses that were pointedly too small. Yoo-jin made cutting comments about my background, my lack of connections, my inability to help Jin-woo's career the way a proper wife should. Jin-woo never defended me. He sat through these visits like a man enduring a dental procedure, his face blank, his responses minimal. I learned to expect nothing from him, but I also learned to watch. The way his jaw tightened when his mother made particularly cutting remarks. The way his hands would curl into fists under the table when Yoo-jin laughed at my expense. the way his eyes would track my movements even when he pretended not to notice me. Most tellingly, I noticed how other people reacted to him. The security guards who straightened like soldiers when he passed, the prosecutors who called him late at night speaking in urgent, deferential tones, the criminals whose cases he prosecuted, their names whispered in fear on the news. Park Jin-woo wasn't just any prosecutor. He was the one who'd taken down 3 of Seoul's most powerful crime families, the one judges consulted and politicians feared. A few weeks into the marriage, I began teaching myself Korean. I used apps on my phone, watched dramas with subtitles, practiced pronunciation until my tongue ached. Jin-woo noticed, though he said nothing. I caught him watching me practice from the doorway one evening, his dark eyes unreadable before he turned away. Later that night, I found expensive Korean textbooks on my nightstand. No note, but I knew who'd left them. 1 month into our marriage, Jin-woo's colleague, Prosecutor Choi, visited for dinner. He was younger, friendly, with an easy smile that made me relax for the first time in weeks. Throughout the meal, Choi asked about me, my interests, what I thought of Seoul. He laughed at my jokes, complimented my improving Korean, treated me like a person rather than an inconvenient obligation. I found myself smiling genuinely. Jin-woo said nothing, but his knuckles went white around his chopsticks. After dinner, when I excused myself to get dessert, I overheard Choi's voice warm with admiration. "Your wife is lovely, Jin-woo. You're a lucky man." Jin-woo's response came after a long pause, his voice dropping to something dangerous and possessive. "Yes, she is, and she's mine." The territorial edge in those words made my breath catch. That night, Jin-woo broke pattern. Instead of disappearing to his study, he knocked on my door. "May I come in?" he asked, his English perfect, but his accent making the words sound like a caress. I stepped aside. Jin-woo entered slowly, taking in the Korean language notes scattered across my desk. "You're learning Korean," he observed. "It seemed practical," I replied, "since I live here now." His expression remained neutral, but something flickered in his eyes. "You don't have to change yourself for this family." "I'm not changing for them," I said. "I'm changing for me." His jaw tightened. "This marriage wasn't your choice. It was forced on you by people who saw you as disposable. I know what that feels like." Before I could respond, Jin-woo's phone buzzed urgently. "I have to go," he said, but he paused at the threshold. "Allowin, you're not disposable, not to me." He left before I could process the words. Over the following days, Jin-woo's careful distance began eroding. He started coming home for dinner, sitting across from me in companionable silence. He asked about my day, listened when I described my attempts to understand Korean television, occasionally corrected my pronunciation with something that almost resembled patience. One evening, his mother called with her usual demands. When he hung up, his jaw was tight with tension. "Your mother," I asked quietly. "She wants you to attend a charity gala next week. You're expected to come as well." My stomach sank. "Let me guess. She'll have opinions about what I wear." His expression darkened. "She'll have opinions about everything." He stood abruptly, returning with a black credit card. "Buy whatever you want for the gala. Wear what makes you feel powerful. I don't need your money, I know, but I want you to have it anyway." His dark eyes met mine. "You're my wife, Elowen. That means what's mine is yours." The gala was exactly as miserable as I anticipated. Jin-woo's family surrounded us the moment we arrived, his mother's eyes narrowing at my dress. I'd chosen deep emerald that hugged my curves, elegant and confident and completely unlike anything she would have approved. "I see you've decided to make a statement," she said coldly. "How very American of you." Jin-woo's hand found the small of my back, warm and possessive through silk. My wife looks beautiful. Throughout the evening, I endured the usual parade of barely concealed insults. Jinwoo remained silent through it all, his face that familiar mask of cold indifference. If you're loving this story, hit subscribe right now. More Afro-Korean revenge stories every week, until Prosecutor Choi appeared with champagne and genuine warmth. Mrs. Park, you look stunning. That color suits you. I smiled gratefully. Thank you. It's nice to see a friendly face. Choi laughed. Seoul society can be brutal, but don't let them intimidate you. Jinwoo materialized at my side so quickly I startled. His hand settled on my waist, possessive and unmistakable. Choi, I need to speak with you about the Kim case. Now. His tone was arctic. After Choi left, I turned to Jinwoo. That was rude. He was being kind to me. Jinwoo's jaw flexed. He was flirting with you. So? I challenged, emboldened by champagne and weeks of frustration. You've made it clear this marriage is legal obligation only. Why should it matter if someone else finds me attractive? Jinwoo's eyes went dangerously dark. It matters. Why? Because you're mine. The words came out rough, almost unwilling. I know I've been cold. I know I've kept distance between us. But that doesn't mean I can watch other men touch what belongs to me without wanting to break their hands. I don't belong to anyone. Jinwoo's free hand came up to cup my face. You belong to me the same way I belong to you, whether either of us planned it or not. Before I could respond, his mother's voice cut through the moment. Jinwoo, we need you for photographs. He pulled away reluctantly. But when the photograph session ended, Jinwoo was pulled into an urgent conference with several prosecutors. I found myself alone, navigating the gala crowd while trying to process what had just happened between us. I stepped onto the terrace for air. The night was cool, Seoul's lights glittering below like fallen stars. Behind me, the terrace door opened. I turned expecting Jinwoo, but found instead a man I didn't recognize. Tall, expensive suit, smile that didn't reach his eyes. Mrs. Park, he said smoothly, I've been hoping to speak with you. Something in his tone made my instincts scream danger. I don't think we've met. No, but I know your husband quite well. He stepped closer, backing me toward the terrace railing. Tell me, does the righteous prosecutor Park sleep well at night, knowing he sent my brother to prison on fabricated evidence? My heart hammered. I don't know what you're talking about. Of course you don't. The man's hand shot out, gripping my wrist hard enough to bruise. But perhaps you can deliver a message for me. The knife appeared so fast I barely saw it. Cold steel pressed against my throat, and I understood with terrible clarity that this man intended to kill me. Then the terrace door exploded open. Jinwoo stood there, and I had never seen him like this before. His controlled mask was completely shattered, replaced by something feral and utterly lethal. His dark eyes had gone black with rage, his entire body coiled like a predator about to strike. Let her go, Jinwoo said, his voice so cold it could have frozen hell itself. Now. The man laughed, pressing the knife harder against my throat. I felt a hot trickle of blood, saw Jinwoo's eyes track it with something that looked like agony mixed with murder. Jinwoo moved with speed that defied physics. One moment he was across the terrace, the next his hand was on the man's wrist, twisting with brutal precision. The knife clattered away. The man screamed as something in his wrist snapped. Jinwoo didn't stop. He slammed the man against the terrace wall hard enough to crack stone. Touch my wife again, Jinwoo said, quietly, each word carefully enunciated, and I will end you, not arrest you, not prosecute you, end you. Then he turned to me, and his expression transformed completely. His hands came up to frame my face with infinite gentleness, his thumb carefully wiping away the blood on my throat. You're hurt, His voice cracked. "I'm so sorry. I should have been watching." "It's just a scratch," I managed. "You're not okay." Jin-woo pulled me against his chest, his arms wrapping around me like he could shield me from the entire world. "You're bleeding because I left you alone. We're leaving," he finally said against my hair. "Now." The drive home was tense silence. When we reached the penthouse, he followed me inside. "Wait," he said roughly. "Please, don't go yet." I turned, finding him standing in the middle of the living room looking lost. "Talk to me," I said softly. "I'm thinking that I've been a coward," Jinwoo began, his voice raw. "I married you to satisfy my family's expectations. I told myself I was protecting you by keeping distance, but tonight proved how wrong I was." "What do I mean to you?" I whispered. "Everything." The word came out like a confession. "You mean everything, and that terrifies me because everyone I care about gets hurt. Everyone I love becomes a target. So I thought if I stayed cold, if I treated you like obligation, you'd be safe. Instead, I left you vulnerable." He took a step toward me. "I watched them tear you down day after day. I sat there like a statue while they made you feel worthless, and I told myself it was for your protection. But really, I was just afraid. Afraid of what? Afraid that if I let myself feel what I feel for you, something terrible would happen." His hands came up to cup my face. "But tonight, when I saw that knife against your throat, when I saw your blood, I realized the terrible thing had already happened. I was losing you through my own cowardice." His thumb traced my lower lip. "No more distance. No more pretending you don't matter. From this moment forward, you're mine, and everyone will know it." He kissed me. Not the cold, impersonal press of lips at our wedding, but something desperate and claiming. His mouth moved over mine like he was starving. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Jinwoo pressed his forehead against mine. "I will never pull away from you again," he vowed. That night they finally let themselves feel it, a tender, claiming kiss, and everything changed. When morning came, Jinwoo was already awake, watching me with an intensity that should have been unsettling, but instead made me feel cherished. "Good morning, wife," he said, the word carrying new weight. "Everything changes from today. No more separate rooms, no more distance." As if summoned by the intimacy, Jinwoo's phone buzzed urgently. "I have to go into the office. There's been a development in last night's incident. The man who attacked you is connected to the Choi crime family. They're retaliating. This isn't over. They'll come after you. Again." The next few days were tense. Jinwoo doubled security, had me shadowed everywhere I went. His family noticed the change immediately. At the next family dinner, his mother's eyes narrowed at the way Jinwoo's hand rested possessively on my knee throughout the meal. "I see you've become quite attached to your wife," she said coldly. How unexpected. Jinwoo's expression remained neutral, but his tone carried steel. "Yes, Alawan is mine. Anyone who treats her with anything less than complete respect answers to me. Is that clear?" The table went silent. Yujin laughed nervously. "Jinwoo, you're being dramatic." "Am I?" He looked directly at his sister. "You've spent weeks making cutting remarks about my wife's background, her appearance, her worthiness. That ends now. Let me clarify something for everyone at this table. Alawan is my wife. She speaks with my authority. She makes decisions about our household, our life, our future. Anyone who disrespects her disrespects me." His mother set down her chopsticks carefully. "You're letting your emotions cloud your judgment. She's not one of us. She'll never be one of us." "Then perhaps," Jinwoo said coldly, standing and pulling me up with him, "I don't want to be one of us either. We're leaving." Over the following week, the shift became public knowledge. Jinwoo made sure I appeared at his side at every event. introduced me with unmistakable pride, touched me constantly with possessive affection. Unfortunately, his enemies noticed too. The attack came one afternoon when I was returning from a Korean lesson. My security team was professional and vigilant, but the Choi family had planned carefully. 3 vehicles boxed in my car, forcing it to stop. Armed men emerged. The lead security guard died protecting me, buying seconds to run. I fled into a crowded marketplace, heart hammering, phone clutched in my shaking hand. I managed to send Jinwoo a single text with my location before someone grabbed me from behind. The world went dark. When I woke, I was in an abandoned warehouse, hands bound, head pounding. Across from me stood a man who introduced himself as Choi Dae-jung, head of the Choi crime family. "Your husband destroyed my organization," he said pleasantly. "So now I'm going to destroy what he values most." "Jinwoo will find me," I said. "Of course he will." Choi smiled. "I'm counting on it." The hours that followed were nightmare. I lost track of time, focusing only on staying conscious, staying alive. I thought of Jinwoo, of his fierce protection, his possessive claiming. I refused to die in this warehouse. When Jinwoo burst through the warehouse doors with what looked like half of Seoul's police force, I had never seen anything more beautiful. He was fury incarnate, moving through Choi's men with lethal precision. When he finally reached me, cutting through my bonds with shaking hands, his mask cracked completely. "You're alive," he gasped against my hair. "I thought I lost you. I'm okay. I knew you'd come." "Always," Jinwoo pulled back to cut my face. "I will always come for you, always find you, always protect you. You're mine, and I take care of what's mine." That night, back in our penthouse with enhanced security, Jinwoo ran me a bath and carefully tended my injuries. "I failed you," he said quietly. "I promised to protect you, and I let them take you." "You didn't let them do anything," I caught his hand. "You saved me. I'll always come for you," Jinwoo repeated. "But I can't go through that again, which is why you're never leaving my sight again." He pulled me into his arms. "I love you. I don't think I knew what love was until I married you, until I watched you survive my family's cruelty with grace, until I saw your blood and realized I would burn the world down rather than lose you. I love you too," I pressed closer. "I think I've loved you since you stopped being cold." The weeks following brought changes that rippled through every aspect of our lives. Jinwoo became simultaneously more protective and more openly affectionate. At the next family gathering, his mother's expression was glacial as she watched Jinwoo pull out my chair, serve me food first. "You're making a spectacle," she hissed, treating her like she's something precious when everyone knows this marriage was arranged. "She's common, Jinwoo. No amount of affection will change that." Jinwoo's voice dropped to something dangerous. "Let me make something very clear. Alawan is not out of her depth. She survived your cruelty for weeks. She was kidnapped and tortured because of my work and never once blamed me. She's stronger than anyone at this table." His dark eyes swept the room, and from today, she speaks with my full authority on all family matters. The silence was absolute. "You can't be serious," Yujin said nervously. "Our family has traditions, hierarchy. You can't just elevate her." "Above who?" Jinwoo interrupted. "I absolutely can. Ilawan is my wife, my partner, my equal. Her word is my word. Her decisions are my decisions. Anyone who questions her questions me." His hand found mine, threading our fingers together. "She's exactly the woman I want standing beside me. And if you can't accept that, you're welcome to leave my home." His mother stood abruptly. "You'll regret this. When that girl shows her true colors, when she uses you and discards you, you'll remember this moment. Then I'll deal with it when it happens. Jinwoo replied calmly. But I've watched Eloan's true colors for months now. She stayed through your abuse. She stayed through my coldness. She stayed after being kidnapped by my enemies. If that's not loyalty, what is? His mother left without another word, several relatives following. Jinwoo turned to me, his expression softening. Are you all right? I nodded. You just chose me over your entire family. I chose us, he corrected. I chose the life I want, and I'd make the same choice every time. They called it a punishment. It became a partnership, renewed vows in a private garden, where Jinwoo cried when he saw me walking toward him. A pregnancy that brought out new layers of his fierce protectiveness. A daughter named Jisun, meaning wisdom and goodness. A life where he introduced me as his wife with unmistakable pride, not an obligation. His enemies fell. The family shifted, some accepting, others fading away. What was meant to break us turned into the life we chose. Years later, when people asked how we met, Jinwoo would smile and say we were matched by mutual obligation. I would add with a laugh that I was married off to humiliate him. Then we would exchange a look, one that spoke of cold beginnings, transformed into warmth, of punishment that became salvation. They married me to shame him, to remind him that even powerful men could be controlled and obligated. They forgot shame only works on the powerless, and we were never powerless. We were just waiting for each other.